Rams house. On today's episode of the Rams Report by Chad Sports, we are breaking down some comment suggested ideas, both for trades and free agents the Rams could go after. Some big names in today's video. We've got George Pickens potentially going after him, as well as guys like Trey Hendrickson and Jordan Addison. All three of these names were suggested by commenters, by viewers just like yourself. Shout out to these two real ones who got in the comments and let us know that they wanted to see these videos at Edits Pukafan, at Joe Grubb T2V. You two guys are absolute real ones. And if you want your ideas to be our next video, make sure you're getting in the comments. And I've actually got a specific request for you to comment on today's video. I want you to let me know a draft target that you would like to see me talk about. Somebody for the Rams that you want to see them go after. I'm going to gather up all of your guys' comments, all of your draft targets, and in a future video down the line, I'm going to react to them. So get in those comments and let me know a draft target that you want the Rams to go after. Preferably someone we haven't already talked about if you've been keeping up with our content. But let's talk about George Pickens. He's going to kick off today's video. Could George Pickens be a trade target for the Los Angeles Rams? He is expected to be franchise tagged by the Cowboys over the next couple days. We actually just got some news around that before I headed into the studio. A little bit of breaking news around George Pickens' trade status or franchise tag status. But could this be a setup for a tag and trade for the Dallas Cowboys? They've been a little mum about potentially getting a long-term deal done with him, but why would they want to move off of one of the best receivers in the NFL? I think that's a question worth asking, because look at the numbers from this guy last season. 93 receptions, 1,400 yards, 15.4 yards per catch, 9 touchdowns, just 4 drops on 137 targets. I would absolutely love to have Pickens on the Rams. I would love to bring this guy in. He is an unbelievable receiver. We've talked about the need for a long-term receiver, too, for Puka Nacua to be the running mate with him for our future quarterback. If Matthew Stafford does decide to retire after next season, it's unlikely that Devontae Adams is coming back, even if Stafford does. So Pickens could fill that gap for you. Pickens could be that number 2 receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. And the reason they would ultimately want to move on from him at the end of the day just comes down to cap space. They're too cap strapped to realistically hang on to him. But here's what the trade would look like, in my opinion. It'd be costly. You'd be likely giving up that 29th overall pick in the first round to go out and add George Pickens. And again, remember, he is on a pretty sizable he will expect a pretty sizable contract, and he's likely to be on the franchise tag for this season as well, which will be at $28 million. So this deal is not only going to eat up one of your 2 first-round draft picks, it's also going to eat up a significant amount of your cap space. I would still make it, though, if I was the Rams. I would send this offer. The one problem, though, I don't think the Cowboys want to move him. At the end of the day, I do not think the Dallas Cowboys actually want to move off of George Pickens. I think they want to hang on to him. I do think that although that they've been a little bit touchy about discussing a long-term contract to this point, the latest reports around it are that they are going to franchise tag him. Judy Batista actually put this out today, saying Stephen Jones says Cowboys will finalize franchise tagging George Pickens in the next week. We think the world of him. We want him here, he said. However, when he was asked in a follow-up, would you put a timeline on trying to get this long-term deal done with him? Is there an expectation that you'll get a long-term deal done with him? He would not put a timeline on that, would not answer questions definitively about getting that long-term deal done. So at the end of the day, there's still a chance that they trade George Pickens. I'm not saying the door is slammed shut on that. At this point, it seems up in the air, but my gut tells me they're going to want to hold on to him. When I've had conversations with our Cowboys reporter, Tom, that's kind of what he's telling me as well, is that George Pickens is likely to stay in Dallas at this point. May come down to cap. They may have to make a hard decision, but I think they're going to do what they can to keep him and CeeDee Lamb together. I think they love the idea of that being their 1-2 at the receiver position for years to come for Dak Prescott. But here's somebody that we wouldn't have to trade for. Trey Hendrickson. It seems very unlikely that he is going to return to Cincinnati after this season. At the end of the day, the Bengals are pretty cap-strapped themselves, and this feels like a relationship that is heading for a divorce. These two parties just not on the same page, haven't been for a while, but Trey Hendrickson remains a solid player. Although 2025 was one of his least productive seasons in a while, you go back and look at the last 2 years, 35 sacks in 2024 and 2023 combined. Dominant player over that period. I believe he led the NFL in sacks over those 2 seasons. And in just 7 games, he was able to get 4 sacks this year as well. This is a really, really productive player when it comes to getting after the quarterback. And when I look at this defensive line, this possible defensive line, and again, I do think that you could get this done. I do think that you could bring in Trey Hendrickson for a affordable contract. 1 year, $21 million with $17 million guaranteed. That's actually surprisingly affordable for a guy who went out and got 39.5 sacks over the last couple years. I think it would be a really good idea to sign him. I do, at the end of the day. I would absolutely do this. I would absolutely send this offer to Trey Hendrickson. I would make this deal with him. I would do it. But let's talk about a third candidate here, a third target for the Los Angeles Rams, and that is Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is pretty interesting here. He's been kind of under the radar in terms of trade discussions, in terms of him potentially getting released. That was Joe Grubb's idea. Was Jordan Addison potentially a cut candidate for the Vikings? I don't know if he's a cut candidate, but I do think he is a trade candidate. Joe Nelson, one of the few guys that is talking about this for Sports Illustrated, here's what he had to say. With Jefferson, speaking of Justin Jefferson, already carrying a $38.9 million cap hit in 2026, the Vikings have to be measured about how they spend money in free agency. Do they want to dole out big chunks of cash for wide receivers when they have more pressing needs at center, corner, and safety? Addison is also due for an extension within the next 2 years, so Minnesota has a big decision coming with him. Do they trade him this offseason? Do they sign him to an extension when his value might be a bit lower after a rough 2025 season and his third arrest within 3 years? Yes, I think it is interesting with Jordan Addison at this point because he has been solid when he's been available for the Vikings. And of course, you got to consider his production is a little bit limited just by the nature of being across from Justin Jefferson, who many people consider the best receiver in the NFL, although I would say that goes to our guy, Puka Nacua. And Jordan showed phenomenal talent in college as well. He was a Blitnikoff Award winner. You know this is a really talented football player. There is definite interest, I think, just from a football perspective, in seeing what this guy would look like in Sean McVay's offense. I understand that. But the problems off the field continue to pile up for Jordan Addison. 2023, reckless driving arrest for him. 2024, he gets arrested again near LAX and ultimately turned into a DUI incident, or was arrested on suspicion of DUI, excuse me. Let me clarify my phrasing there. Fell asleep at the wheel there. And then in 2026, just a month ago in January, he was arrested in Florida on trespassing suspicion as well. So this stuff with him off the field is nothing new. It just continues to stack up. It just continues to pile up for Jordan Addison off the field. I think the word just ultimately is nonsense at the end of the day. None of it's like crazy. It doesn't seem like he's, I hate to say, a bad guy at the end of the day. He's not committing violent crimes off of the field, but it just seems like he really needs to kind of straighten up, get in line. And we have seen this Rams staff work those things out with problematic, you might say, players off the field before, bring those guys in, get them back on the straight and narrow. Could you do that again with Jordan Addison? Maybe. And I think the cost would be relatively cheap, you might say. A third round draft pick for a receiver who could have a ton of upside for you. I want to hear from you guys. Would you make this move? Type T for trade here. Type P for pass. Are you in on trading for Jordan Addison, or are you out on this one? I want to hear from you guys, and I'm going to give you my take in just a minute. But get down in those comments and let me know, do you want to trade for Jordan Addison? Do you want to pass on Jordan Addison? To be honest with you guys, I'm going to say no. I don't think at the end of the day that trading for Jordan Addison would be the right decision. I just think that off the field stuff is getting to be too much with him. And you'd be giving up a third round draft pick and going to do that I think you could use to potentially add a receiver deeper down the board. But I also really like the idea of adding one in the first, which we've talked about over and over again on these channels. We have named a bunch of different receiving targets. Mekhi Lemon, you guys know I love the idea of adding Mekhi Lemon, another USC product like Jordan Addison. Carnell Tate from Ohio State, if he's still around on the board at 13, he'd be very interesting. And then you get to your targets at 29 that we've talked about, Omar Cooper Jr. and KC Concepcion. All four of those guys, I think, offer you exactly what Jordan Addison would day one, and then you don't have to go up and give a third-round pick up later in this draft. You don't have to bring in a guy who has off-of-the-field concerns, could potentially be a locker room distraction or off-the-field distraction for your football team. I'm kind of out on Jordan Addison, but if you guys had to pick one of these three players to join the Los Angeles Rams in 2026, I want to know who you're going with. GP for George Pickens. If you want the Rams to go out and make the big trade, even though I'm questionable on whether or not the Cowboys would actually be interested in making it, go GP for me. Trey Hendrickson, you want us to sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency? Give me a TH in the comments. Or Jordan Addison, give me a JA. Let me know in the comments who would you want to see join the Los Angeles Rams, and we will see you in the next one.